When you reach a certain age, you stop noticing how your hands look until someone you love makes you see them again. I used to think my hands were just tools, the ones that cooked, cleaned, wiped tears, and held life together through storms and summers. But the day my granddaughter Aubrey laughed at them, I realized how time had carved its own story there, and how she couldn't read it yet. It happened one sunny afternoon in late June. I was sitting on the porch, peeling apples for a pie. My daughter Fiona was in the kitchen humming along with the radio, and 16-year-old Aubrey had just come home from school, her phone glued to her hand like a second skin. She had that bright, distracted look of youth, the kind that believes the world is waiting just for them. "Grandma," she said, stopping by the porch steps, "you've got really old hands." She said it like she discovered something shocking, like she'd just realized I wasn't made of the same glitter and glow she saw online. She giggled, holding her phone up. "They're all wrinkly. Look, when you move your fingers, they fold like paper." Her laughter was light, but it sliced through me sharper than any knife. Fiona's voice floated from the kitchen. "Aubrey, don't be rude to your grandmother." But it was too late. The sound of that giggle had already settled deep in my chest. I tried to laugh it off. "These hands have worked harder than you'll ever know, sweetheart," I said, smiling. But Aubrey had already turned away, tapping her phone screen. "I'll send it to Kenzie. It's so funny." That night, I sat in bed and looked at my hands under the soft glow of the lamp. Each vein was a river of memory. Every wrinkle a story. The scar across my thumb, the one I got from cutting fabric in my little sewing business, seemed to throb as if it remembered every dress I'd made for Fiona's childhood. I thought about how easily youth mocks what it doesn't yet understand. The next day, Fiona came to me while folding laundry. "Mom, she didn't mean it," she said gently. "Aubrey's just careless sometimes." I nodded, but my heart wasn't angry. It was heavy. "When I was her age," I murmured, "I thought my mother's hands were ugly too. Now I'd give anything to hold them again." Life went on. Aubrey kept growing more distant, her world filling with makeup tutorials, filtered selfies, and dreams of becoming a fashion influencer. I'd watch her through the kitchen window, posing in the garden for her phone camera, twisting her long blonde hair just so. Sometimes I'd whisper to myself, "Child, you don't even know what beauty costs." Then one Saturday morning a knock came at my door. It was Mr. Lowell Pierce, my neighbor for over 30 years. He carried a small box of tools. "Your porch rails come loose again, Marjorie," he said with his usual slow grin. "Mind if I fix it before someone takes a tumble?" I thanked him, offering a glass of lemonade. As he worked, he said softly, "Saw your granddaughter online last night. She's got a video that's getting a lot of views, something about old versus new fashion. You're in it, I think." My stomach tightened. After he left, I went inside and asked Fiona to check Aubrey's social account. There was a short clip, me sitting on the porch peeling apples, the camera zooming in on my hands. The caption read, "My grandma still uses these vintage hands to cook instead of DoorDash." It had over 15,000 views. People were commenting things like "cute but kinda gross" and "so old school." Fiona's face turned pale. "Mom, I'll make her delete it." But I stopped her.
"No, don't.
Let her learn what she's doing first." That night, when Aubrey came home, I asked her to sit. "Do you know what you posted?" I asked quietly. She shrugged. "It's just a joke, Grandma. Everyone thought it was funny." "Did you?" She looked at me, her confidence flickering. "I didn't mean anything bad. It's just people like to laugh." I wanted to tell her that laughter, without kindness, can wound deeper than silence. But I saw her eyes, bright and distracted, already thinking of the next post. Instead, I said, "Someday you'll understand why hands like mine matter." For weeks, I didn't mention it again. I went about my chores, visited my friend Nora at the quilting club, and tried to keep peace at home. But something between Aubrey and me had shifted. She avoided eye contact, perhaps out of guilt, or maybe because she didn't want to face what she'd done. One evening, as autumn winds began to cool the air, Fiona came home late from her nursing shift looking exhausted. "Mom," she said, Aubrey's been skipping her tutoring sessions. Her grades are slipping. I don't know what's going on. I said nothing, but I noticed the change too. Aubrey had grown quieter lately. Her phone stayed in her hand, but her smile seemed thinner. A few days later, I heard muffled sobs from her room. I knocked gently. Aubrey? No answer. When I opened the door, I found her sitting on the floor, her phone beside her. Honey, what's wrong? She wiped her eyes quickly. Nothing. Just people online are mean sometimes. On her screen, I saw the same video, except now the comments had turned harsh. Looks like karma's coming for me, she whispered bitterly. They're saying I'm fake, that I make fun of old people for views. My heart ached. I wanted to hold her, but she pulled away. Grandma, you wouldn't understand. Maybe she was right. Maybe I didn't understand the world of likes and shares. But I understood pain. Later that week, Dr. Nia Caldwell called from the clinic where Fiona worked. She wanted to schedule a checkup for me. You've been under stress, Mrs. Lane, she said kindly. We just want to make sure your heart's holding steady. I laughed softly. My heart's fine, doctor. It's just tired of being broken by people who don't mean to break it. That night, I couldn't sleep. I walked to the porch and looked at my hands again in the moonlight. They trembled slightly, not from weakness but from remembering. The last time someone mocked my hands, it was a stranger at the factory where I used to sew uniforms. Old lady still threading needles, he'd said. Yet those same hands had fed a family, fixed torn dreams, and carried love through decades. I realized then that this wasn't just about me. It was about what's lost when generations forget each other's worth. The next morning, I woke early and started baking bread. The smell filled the kitchen like memory itself. When Aubrey came downstairs, she looked at the warm loaves and blinked in surprise. You still bake from scratch? Always, I said, placing a loaf on the counter. You can help me if you want. She hesitated, then shook her head. I've got a live stream to prepare for. Maybe later. But before she left, she looked at my hands again. For a second, something softened in her eyes. Then it was gone. Days passed. Autumn deepened. One afternoon, Fiona rushed in, panic in her face. Mom, did you see Aubrey's post today? I shook my head. Fiona handed me her phone. On it was a photo of Aubrey's hands covered in paint, the caption reading, "Working on a new project with Grandma's old-fashioned skills. Let's see if this goes viral for the right reasons." I felt a strange mix of pride and fear. Was this her apology, or another experiment for attention? That evening, she came to me shyly holding a canvas. I want to paint your hands, she said, to show what they've done. For the first time in months, I smiled. All right, sweetheart, but paint them how they are, not how you wish they were. She nodded, setting up her easel. As she painted, I told her stories about the dresses I sewed for her mother, the meals I cooked when money was short, the nights I stayed awake waiting for her grandfather to come home from long shifts. Her brush slowed, her expression changing from amusement to awe. When she finished, she whispered, "Grandma, they're beautiful." I felt tears welling up. They always were, dear. You just had to look closer. Before I could say more, her phone buzzed. She glanced at it, frowned, and hurried out. Through the window, I saw her pacing in the yard, voice trembling as she spoke. Something was wrong. A few minutes later, Fiona rushed out to her. The two argued in low, urgent tones I couldn't make out. When Fiona came back in, her face was pale. "Mom," she said softly, "we need to talk about something. It's about Aubrey's new project, and what she's really planning." I looked from her to the half-finished painting still drying on the easel. The image of my hands shimmered in the light, beautiful, fragile, eternal. And I felt a chill run through me, as if the story between us was only just beginning. Sometimes, I whispered to myself, the hands that raise you must one day save you. When Fiona told me there was more to Aubrey's new project, a strange weight settled in my chest. I had a feeling that painting of my hands, so pure, so full of promise, wasn't just art to her. It was a door she was about to walk through, and something inside me whispered that not everyone who watched her would mean well. "Mom," Fiona said again, lowering her voice. "She didn't just paint that for fun. She's entering it in an online art contest. The winner gets a sponsorship deal and a big cash prize. But she used a story that isn't true." I frowned. "What do you mean?" Fiona sighed. "She told people you're sick, that you have advanced arthritis, and you can't use your hands anymore. She said the painting was a tribute to your final days of creating." The room went cold. I stared at the painting on the easel, my hands captured mid-motion, strong and alive. Why would she say that? "She thought it would help her get sympathy votes," Fiona whispered. "She told me she didn't mean any harm. She just wanted people to care." I couldn't speak. There's a particular kind of heartbreak that only comes from someone you love trying to turn your pain into their performance. I sat down slowly, feeling the air thicken around me. When Aubrey came home that evening, I was still at the table. "Grandma," she said brightly, "you won't believe it. My painting's going viral. People are saying it's so emotional, some even cried." I looked up at her, my voice quiet but steady. "They cried because they think I'm dying." She froze, her smile fading. "You saw it?" "I did. Fiona told me." Her lips trembled. "I didn't mean Grandma, I swear, I just wanted to win. Everyone online exaggerates. It's part of the game." "Life isn't a game, Aubrey. People's hearts aren't props for your followers." She flinched. "You don't get it. Nobody notices you unless you make them feel something. And people love sad stories." "Then tell yours," I said softly. "Not mine." She stormed off, muttering, "Maybe if you understood how the world works now, you'd see I'm doing something good for both of us." That night, I couldn't sleep. I sat by the window, watching the moon spill silver over the garden. I remembered how her little hands used to grip mine when she was learning to walk, how she'd cry when she fell, and I'd lift her up again. Now those same hands typed lies for strangers to consume. The next morning, the phone wouldn't stop ringing. Reporters, local bloggers, even a small news outlet wanted to interview the inspiring grandmother who can't use her hands anymore. Fiona answered them all, furious.
No interviews. No statements.
"Please respect our privacy." Aubrey avoided us for days, locking herself in her room. I could hear her recording videos, rehearsing emotional lines, crying on cue. Each sob sounded rehearsed, hollow, yet heartbreakingly young. One afternoon, I decided I couldn't bear the silence anymore. I knocked gently on her door. "May I come in?" She hesitated. "I'm live right now." "Then they'll hear the truth," I said, opening the door. The screen glowed with her followers' comments scrolling by. She was mid-sentence. "My grandmother taught me that beauty fades, but love lasts forever." When she saw me, her face drained of color. "Grandma." I stepped closer, calm but unyielding. "Aubrey, sweetheart, tell them how my hands really are. Show them."
Her voice faltered.
I can't. They'd think I lied. Then you'd be telling the truth now." The live stream audience exploded in comments. "Who's that? Is that her grandma? Wait, is she okay?" Aubrey's eyes filled with tears. "Please, Grandma, not now. You'll ruin everything." I turned to the camera. "Hello, everyone. My name's Marjorie Lane. My hands may be old, but they still work just fine. My granddaughter's a talented artist. She doesn't need to make me weaker than I am to prove it." Before I could say more, Aubrey ended the stream abruptly. The screen went black. She stood trembling. "You just embarrassed me in front of everyone." I sighed. Sometimes embarrassment is a softer lesson than regret. She ran out, slamming the door. Later that evening, Mr. Lowell Pierce stopped by with his usual quiet knock. "I saw something online," he said gently, setting down a basket of apples. "Didn't seem right. You okay, Marjorie?" I nodded, though my throat ached. "Kids these days chase light, even if it burns them." He chuckled sadly. "When we were young, we wanted to be remembered. Now, they just want to be seen." The next few weeks were uneasy. Aubrey's contest entry was disqualified for misrepresentation. She lost her sponsorship, and the internet turned cruel. Comments that once adored her now mocked her. The same audience that cheered her lies now demanded her shame. One night, I found her crying at the kitchen table, her phone face down beside her. "They hate me," she whispered. "Everyone does. They're saying I'm heartless."
He sat beside her.
"You're not heartless, Aubrey. Just lost. And lost things can be found." She sobbed harder. "I ruined everything. I made you look pathetic, and for what? A few likes?" I touched her shoulder. "What matters is what you do now. The world can forgive a mistake. It can't forgive pretending it didn't happen." For a few days, she seemed quieter, more thoughtful. She deleted old posts, stayed off social media, and spent more time helping me around the house. I began to hope that maybe she'd learned. But healing rarely follows a straight line. One afternoon, Fiona came home looking worried. "Mom," she said, "have you seen Aubrey's art supplies lately? She's been buying expensive equipment again." I checked her bank card. She's spending money she doesn't have. I frowned. Maybe she's starting a new project. Fiona bit her lip. "That's what scares me." A week later, while cleaning, I noticed an unfamiliar envelope in Aubrey's room. It was addressed to Marjorie Lane, private and confidential. Inside was a letter from a gallery in Chicago. My hands trembled as I read, "We are honored to showcase your collaborative art piece with your granddaughter, The Final Threads, as part of our Generations of Grace exhibit. Please confirm attendance and media rights approval." Collaborative? I hadn't made any art with her since that one painting, and I certainly hadn't approved any exhibition. When she came home, I held the letter out. "Would you like to explain this?" Her face flushed. "It's just marketing, Grandma. The gallery loved the story about us, the idea of a dying artist passing her craft down to her granddaughter. They want you there for the photos."
He sat her.
"So you told them again that I'm dying?" She looked away. "It's what sells, okay? Nobody wants a story about a healthy old woman." For a long moment, neither of us spoke. Then I said quietly, "When you were little, you used to paint the world the way you wanted it to be. Now you paint lies to make the world like you." Her eyes shimmered with tears, but she didn't answer. That night, Fiona confronted her too. I could hear their voices from the hall, anger, sorrow, and the desperate confusion that fills the space between generations. "Mom," Aubrey cried, "you don't understand. If I don't make something big happen, I'll never get into art school. I'll be stuck here forever." "And lying about your grandmother is how you plan to start your career?" Fiona shot back. Aubrey's reply was a whisper I barely caught. "I thought Grandma would forgive me. She always does." Those words cut deeper than any insult ever could. The next day, Dr. Nia Caldwell called to confirm my annual checkup. "You still doing okay, Marjorie?" she asked. I smiled weakly. "Physically?"
Yes.
"Emotionally?" "That's a longer story." Dr. Caldwell chuckled kindly. "Well, I've got time if you ever need to talk." After I hung up, I walked out to the garden where Aubrey was sketching. "You know," I said, "forgiveness isn't an endless fountain. It dries up when it's taken for granted." She looked up, startled.
"I'm sorry, Grandma."
I don't know who I am without people watching." I knelt beside her. "Then maybe it's time to learn who you are when no one is." Her eyes filled again, but she nodded faintly. That night, Fiona received a phone call from the gallery director. "Mrs. Lane," the woman said cheerfully, "we're thrilled about your upcoming attendance. The media package will feature your grandmother's final public appearance. Such an inspiring story." Fiona's hand tightened on the phone.
"Who told you that?"
"Your daughter, of course." Fiona's face turned pale. "We're not coming." She hung up and turned to me, shaking. "Mom, she's done it again. She told them you're dying. They're running a full story next week." My chest felt heavy, not with anger, but with the ache of realizing love doesn't always protect you from betrayal. It just keeps you standing through it. The next morning, I found Aubrey in the garden again, staring at her phone with trembling hands. Her face was ghostly pale. "What's wrong, sweetheart?" I asked. She handed me the phone. There, on the screen, was a leaked email thread. Someone had shared her messages with the gallery. They included her false claims about my final exhibition, along with pictures she doctored of me in a hospital bed. Her followers were furious. Some called her manipulative, others called her cruel. The story was spreading fast. "I didn't mean for it to go this far," she whispered, voice cracking. "I just wanted one good chance." She broke down, sobbing uncontrollably. Fiona came running, pulling her into her arms. But Aubrey pushed her away, gasping, "You don't get it. They'll ruin me." I stepped forward, calm and steady. "Then maybe it's time you stop running from what you've become." She looked up at me, terrified. "What do I do now?" Before I could answer, the sound of a car pulling up outside interrupted us. Through the window, I saw a black sedan with a logo on the side, Chicago Arts Network. Reporters. Fiona's face went white. "They're here." Aubrey's phone buzzed with notifications, the screen lighting up with messages from strangers demanding answers. Outside, cameras flashed as voices shouted, "Is it true, Mrs. Lane? Are you the dying artist? Did your granddaughter fake your illness?" I straightened my shoulders, looking toward the door. My heart pounded, but not from fear. Something inside me had shifted from sorrow to resolve. "Stay here," I said to Fiona and Aubrey, my voice steady as a thread drawn through fabric. It's time they heard the truth from me. I opened the door, stepping into the light of the cameras, my old hands trembling but unbroken. The reporters fell silent as I began to speak. I stood on the porch, surrounded by cameras, microphones, and faces that hungered for scandal. They wanted the frail old woman from the viral story, the dying grandmother with the tragic hands. But I wasn't frail, and I wasn't dying. "Mrs. Lane," one reporter called out, "is it true your granddaughter lied about your illness?" I took a deep breath, feeling the autumn wind curl through my hair. "It's true," I said softly, "but lies don't always come from malice. Sometimes they grow from fear of not being enough." A ripple went through the crowd. The cameras flashed faster. I could feel Aubrey watching from inside the window, her face pale against the glass. "She made a mistake," I continued. "She thought the world would only listen to her if her story was drenched in tragedy. But I'm here, alive, with hands that have built and broken and healed, and I still believe in her." Someone shouted, "Do you forgive her?" My eyes filled with tears.
Ido.
Because forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. It means refusing to let pain win. I turned and went back inside, leaving the reporters murmuring behind me. Inside, Aubrey was sobbing. "You shouldn't have done that. They'll tear me apart online now." Fiona placed a trembling hand on her shoulder. "Sweetheart, the truth had to come out." Aubrey's voice cracked. "You don't get it. They'll cancel me. My sponsors are already gone. My friends won't answer me, and now this." I looked at her, my heart breaking but firm. "Then maybe it's time to rebuild, not the image but the person beneath it." She glared at me through tears. "You can't rebuild what everyone already hates." Fiona tried to hug her, but she pushed away, running upstairs. The slam of her bedroom door echoed like a final note of a song none of us wanted to hear again. For a long time, Fiona and I sat in silence. Finally, she whispered, "Mom, she's spiraling. I can see it. The guilt's eating her alive." That night, I heard her pacing. Hours later, her door creaked open. She stood in the hall, pale and trembling. "Grandma," she whispered, "can I sleep in your room?" I nodded, moving over, so she could lie beside me. She curled up like she used to when she was little. "I keep dreaming they're chasing me," she said softly. "All those people online, faces I don't even know. They're calling me a liar, a monster." I stroked her hair gently. "The world will move on, child. But you have to forgive yourself first, or you'll never move with it." She fell asleep crying. The next morning, the story had exploded nationwide. Headlines twisted my words. "Grandmother defends deceptive granddaughter." Some painted me as noble, others as naive. Aubrey's face was everywhere, screenshots, memes, hashtags. Kenzie Hart came by that afternoon, hesitant and guilty. Mrs. Lane, she said quietly, I didn't mean for it to go this far. I just shared the gallery leak with one person. I didn't know it had spread. I sighed. The internet doesn't whisper, dear. It shouts. She nodded, tears in her eyes. Aubrey won't talk to me. She blocked everyone. When Fiona came home from work, she found Aubrey sitting on the porch steps, staring blankly into the distance. Honey, she said softly, please talk to us. Aubrey didn't look up. I wish I could delete myself. Those words hit like a stone in my chest. I sat beside her, my voice trembling. You're still here, Aubrey. That means you still get to choose what happens next. She finally met my eyes, her face blotchy and tired. Do you ever wish you could go back? Before everything you said or did was permanent? I smiled sadly. Every generation wishes for that, but the only time we can change is the next one we live. That evening, the phone rang again, this time from Dr. Nia Caldwell. Mrs. Lane, she said, I'm calling because Fiona asked me to check in on Aubrey. She's showing signs of anxiety and depression. I'd like to schedule an appointment. I thanked her. After hanging up, I told Fiona, who nodded, eyes glassy. She needs help, Mom. Maybe this was the breaking point. The next morning, Aubrey was gone. Her bed was unmade, her phone missing.
Fiona panicked.
Mom. She left a note. She handed me the small, folded paper. My hand shook as I opened it. I'm sorry for everything. I didn't mean to hurt you. Maybe it's better if I disappear for a while. I'll come back when I'm not a disappointment. My world tilted. Fiona, call Mr. Pierce. See if he's seen her. Mr. Pierce hadn't. We searched the park, the old bridge near the creek, even the art supply store downtown. No sign of her. Fiona filed a missing person report that evening. The police officer tried to sound calm, but his eyes were grave. Teenage girls sometimes run off for a day or two. We'll keep an eye out. But I couldn't rest. Every shadow outside looked like her silhouette. Every creak of the floorboards made my heart race. 2 nights later, around midnight, I heard faint knocking. When I opened the door, Aubrey stood there, soaked from rain, shaking. Grandma, she whispered, voice raw. I didn't know where else to go. I pulled her into my arms. She was ice cold. Fiona came running, tears spilling as she wrapped her daughter in a towel. We got her settled by the fire. She wouldn't speak for a long time. Finally, she whispered, I went to Kenzie's. Her mom told me I couldn't stay. She said I bring bad luck. Fiona's face hardened. She's a child, not a curse. Aubrey stared at the flames. They're right, though. I ruin everything. I sat beside her, placing my old hand over hers. You can't ruin what love refuses to abandon. For the first time, she let herself cry openly, raw, broken, unguarded. Fiona knelt beside us, the 3 of us tangled in a silence that wasn't empty, but full of every word we hadn't said. The next day, Aubrey agreed to see Dr. Caldwell. She started therapy quietly, reluctantly. The doctor told us to give her time. Weeks passed. Life began to move again, slowly, cautiously. Aubrey painted still lives and small sketches instead of self-portraits. She avoided social media completely. Sometimes, I'd catch her staring at my hands while I worked, as if trying to understand them anew. But peace has a way of being temporary when truth is still hiding. One cold afternoon, Mr. Pierce came over with the mail. You got a letter, Marjorie, he said. Looks official. I opened it and froze. It was from the Chicago Gallery's legal department. Dear Mrs. Lane, we regret to inform you that due to false representation and unauthorized use of likeness, you are being included in a pending investigation regarding fraudulent submissions and contract violations. Please respond immediately. My stomach dropped. Fraudulent submissions? Fiona looked alarmed. Mom, did Aubrey use your name to sign any contracts? I thought of the envelope from weeks ago, the one I'd found before everything exploded. My heart sank. She must have forged my signature. Aubrey overheard us from the stairs. Her face went white. I didn't mean for that to happen. I just used your name. so they'd take me seriously. I was going to tell you. Fiona's voice cracked. You forged legal documents, Aubrey. They could press charges. Aubrey burst into tears. I didn't know. I just wanted to fix everything. Fiona turned away, covering her face with her hands. I could see the war inside her. Anger and love, disappointment and grief. I reached out to Aubrey. We'll face it together. No more lies. No more running. That evening, I called the gallery myself. This is Marjorie Lane, I said. Whatever mistake was made, I'll make it right. My granddaughter didn't act out of greed, only confusion. The woman on the line sighed. I appreciate that, Mrs. Lane. But there's another issue. Someone has been selling prints of that painting online, under your signature. Thousands of dollars worth. My pulse stopped cold. What? She hesitated. The seller's account is under your granddaughter's name. I hung up slowly, the phone heavy in my hand. Fiona stared at me. Mom, what did they say? My voice came out thin, brittle. She's been selling the painting. My hands for profit. Aubrey gasped.
No.
It's not what it looks like. Someone offered to buy digital prints. I thought it would help pay the fines. You sold my story, I whispered. Again. Tears streamed down her face. I just wanted to fix what I broke. I closed my eyes, feeling something inside me crack quietly. Not rage, not hate, just the slow shattering of hope. That night, I couldn't sleep. I sat by the fireplace, staring at my hands again, the same ones she'd painted, mocked, loved, and betrayed. They looked steady, but my heart trembled with exhaustion. Near dawn, I heard her footsteps. She stood in the doorway, eyes swollen. Grandma, she whispered, they're coming to question me today. The gallery called. I might get charged. I looked up at her. Then you'll tell the truth. All of it. She nodded, trembling. I will. I promise. She walked over, kneeling beside me. Do you still love me? I took her hand, fragile as glass. Always. But love doesn't erase consequences. She cried silently, pressing her forehead to my knees. When Fiona drove her to the police station that afternoon, I watched from the porch. The same hands that once waved her off to kindergarten now trembled as I lifted them in farewell. Hours later, Fiona returned alone. Her face was blank, unreadable. What happened? I whispered. She took a shaky breath. They're holding her overnight for questioning. They said they found evidence of larger fraud, multiple forged art sales. My heart stilled. How much? Almost $20,000. The room spun. I gripped the arm of the chair to steady myself. Mom, Fiona whispered, eyes filling. What are we going to do? I looked toward the window where the half-finished painting still hung. My own hands staring back at me, painted with such care and deceit intertwined. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. Then I whispered, we tell the truth. All of it. No matter what it costs. But deep down, a darker question began to rise. One I didn't dare say aloud yet. What if my granddaughter's hands have finally crossed a line even love can't reach? The air in our house had changed. It wasn't air anymore. It was silence, heavy and suffocating. After Aubrey's arrest, even the clocks seemed afraid to tick too loudly. For 3 days, I couldn't step into her room. Every corner still whispered her name, the sketchbooks, the dried paint on the desk, the half-finished canvas of a sunrise that would now never be complete. Fiona sat at the kitchen table, staring blankly at her coffee. Her hands trembled when she tried to lift the cup. Mom, she whispered, they're saying she could face real charges. Fraud, identity misuse, art forgery. I folded my old hands together.
She's only 19, Fiona.
There must be mercy somewhere in that law. Fiona's voice cracked. They don't see a confused kid, Mom. They see a calculated scammer. She forged your signature on contracts, took payment, and profited off your name. I looked down at my hands. The ones she painted. The ones she sold. The ones that had once cradled her tiny fingers when she was a baby. Then it's time I tell them everything before they decide who she is without knowing who she was. The next morning, I went with Fiona to the courthouse. Mr. Lowell Pierce met us at the steps, his coat buttoned tight against the November chill. "Marjorie," he said softly, "I've spoken to the attorney. If you testify that you weren't aware of the sales but believe she didn't act with malicious intent, it might lessen her sentence." I nodded. "I'll speak the truth, Lowell. Not to free her, but to help her face what she's done." Inside the courtroom, Aubrey looked smaller than I'd ever seen her. Her hair hung loose, her eyes red from sleepless nights. When she turned and saw me, her lip trembled. "Grandma," I raised a hand gently, not to silence her, but to steady both our hearts. The hearing began. The prosecutor read out the list of charges, words that sounded too cruel for the girl I once taught to hold a crayon.
Forgery.
Identity misuse. Intent to defraud an art gallery for monetary gain. Each phrase was a nail, and I could feel my soul being hammered in rhythm. When they called me to the stand, the room felt colder. My cane echoed as I walked. I looked at the judge, then at Aubrey. "Mrs. Lane," the lawyer began, "were you aware your granddaughter was selling art under your name?" "No," I said clearly. "Not until it was too late." "Did she have your permission to use your likeness or signature?" "No," I said again. "But she had my love, and sometimes that makes you blind." The courtroom was silent. Even the lawyer paused. "Do you believe she intended to harm you?" I hesitated. Aubrey's eyes met mine, wide and frightened. "I believe she wanted to be seen," I said softly. "But she chose the wrong way to do it." The lawyer nodded and stepped back. I turned to the judge. "Your Honor, my granddaughter lost her way in a world that rewards the loudest cries, not the truest hearts. I'm not asking you to excuse her, but to let her find her way back before the world swallows her whole." A murmur spread through the courtroom. The judge glanced down at the file. "Mrs. Lane, your words carry weight. I'll take them into account." When I returned to my seat, Fiona grabbed my hand tightly. Her tears slid silently onto my wrist. After the hearing, we waited outside while the judge reviewed the documents. The wind whipped my scarf as I stood on the courthouse steps. Reporters had gathered again, but I ignored them. A familiar voice called from behind. "Mrs. Lane." It was Kenzie Hart. She looked pale, clutching her phone like it was an anchor. "I'm so sorry," she said, eyes glistening. "I came to tell the truth. The whole story." My brows furrowed. "What story, dear?" Kenzie's voice trembled. "Aubrey didn't start the sales alone. Someone helped her, one of the gallery's interns. They told her it wasn't illegal if the art was inspired by your hands. He encouraged her to post and sell under your name because it would add authenticity." Fiona gasped. "You're saying someone used her?" Kenzie nodded quickly. "His name's Victor Hale. He runs a small digital art marketplace. He used Aubrey's emotional story to drive sales. He even kept a percentage of every print sold." My pulse thudded in my temples. "And you have proof?" Kenzie handed me her phone. "All the texts and payments. Screenshots. Everything." Fiona took the phone, scrolling with shaking fingers. "Mom, this could change everything." We took it to the attorney immediately. When he saw the messages, he let out a low whistle. "Well, I'll be damned. The girl wasn't lying about everything. She was manipulated and exploited." That night, I sat by the fire again, the warmth unable to melt the ache inside me. Fiona was pacing. "Mom, if this evidence holds, they'll reclassify Aubrey's role. Maybe probation. Maybe community service." I nodded slowly. "Justice doesn't mean punishment, Fiona. It means truth finally standing taller than the lies." The next day, the court reconvened. The prosecutor's face had changed, less confidence, more confusion. The lawyer presented Kenzie's evidence. When they read out Victor Hale's name, Aubrey's eyes widened. "He promised to help me," she whispered. "He said he'd protect my art." The judge frowned. "This new information suggests the defendant was manipulated into signing fraudulent documents. A full investigation will be opened against Mr. Hale." Fiona clutched my arm. "Mom, did you hear that?" But I didn't react. I was watching Aubrey, watching how the truth slowly reshaped her posture, her breathing, her eyes. It wasn't relief. It was shame mixed with something deeper. Recognition. After the session, she was allowed a short moment with us. She approached hesitantly. Gran, I didn't deserve what you said up there. You still defended me. I took her hands gently.
No, child.
I defended the part of you that still remembers kindness. She broke down, sobbing into my shoulder. I wanted to be someone. I thought if people saw my art, they'd finally love me. I whispered, you were loved before you ever painted a thing. But you were too busy proving yourself to see it. When the investigation into Victor Hale began, the headlines flipped overnight. Teen artist manipulated by online scammer. The same world that condemned her now pitted her. Mr. Pierce stopped by that evening with a smile. Marjorie, it looks like your granddaughter might be spared real jail time. The gallery's pressing charges on Hale instead. Fiona collapsed into a chair, covering her face. Thank God. But I didn't feel relief, just a quiet, aching fatigue. I'd seen enough of life to know justice was never clean. Someone always walks away bruised, even when truth wins. Later that night, Aubrey came to my room. Grandma, she whispered, they said I'll have to do community service at the senior center. Teaching art classes. I smiled faintly. Seems fitting, doesn't it? You'll learn more from their hands than you ever did from mine. She nodded, tears glimmering. I'll do it. I'll make things right. The days passed. Aubrey began her service, timid at first. Fiona visited the court's counselor to help manage her anxiety. And me, I returned to my garden. My hands trembled more these days, but the soil still felt warm, forgiving. One afternoon, Aubrey returned home with a folded envelope. Grandma, she said, voice trembling, this came for you. It was from Victor Hale's lawyer. My client wishes to extend an apology to Mrs. Lane and her family. He admits partial responsibility and offers financial restitution for the damages caused. Fiona's jaw tightened. Blood money. I shook my head slowly.
No.
It's a confession dressed in paperwork. But I'll take the truth, not his money. Aubrey reached for my hand. You're not going to accept it? No, I said quietly. Some debts are better paid in growth, not gold. She nodded, eyes glistening. Then I'll repay it my own way. There was something in her tone, resolve, maturity, the kind that only comes after shattering and rebuilding. That night, I found her sitting at the dining table, sketching quietly. The drawing was of my hands again, but this time, they weren't trembling or aged beyond grace. They were strong, lined with history but alive. Around them, she had drawn tiny children's hands, reaching, learning, holding. What's this? I asked softly. She smiled faintly. My next project for the senior center. I'm calling it Hands That Teach. It's about you. Tears stung my eyes. That's beautiful, Aubrey. It's not about forgiveness, she whispered. It's about what I finally understand. As I stood there, watching her draw, I realized something had shifted, not in her, not in me, but between us. The chain of guilt had loosened, and something gentler had taken its place. But the world outside our little home wasn't finished yet. 2 weeks later, a letter came from the gallery. They wanted to showcase Aubrey's community work as part of a Redemption in Art series. Fiona froze. Are we really ready for that attention again? I looked at the letter, then at Aubrey. Sometimes the only way to heal a wound is to let light fall on it. Aubrey swallowed hard. If I do this, Grandma, I want you there beside me. I nodded slowly. Then I will be. As the day of the showcase approached, we prepared quietly. The painting, the photos, the press, they were all coming back. But this time, we weren't victims or liars. We were witnesses of truth. The night before the event, I sat by the fire, my hands folded in my lap. Fiona came in, placing a soft shawl over my shoulders. You ready for tomorrow, Mom? I smiled faintly. As ready as I'll ever be. She hesitated. Do you think people will forgive her? I looked into the flames. Forgiveness isn't the end, Fiona. It's the beginning. Outside, The wind carried the sound of distant church bells. Inside, the three of us sat together, 3 generations scarred and mended by the same truth. Tomorrow, the world would see us again. But tonight, we had something the world couldn't give or take away: quiet understanding. The calm before the final storm. The morning of the art showcase arrived with the gentlest light I'd seen in months. The world outside my window was brushed in gold, and for the first time in a long while, I felt like I could breathe without pain. I stood in front of the mirror, smoothing my shawl over my shoulders. My reflection was an old woman's, creased, tired, but behind those lines, there was peace. Fiona helped me fasten a small silver brooch that once belonged to my mother. "You look beautiful, Mom," she said softly. I smiled.
No, dear.
"I look real. There's a difference." Aubrey appeared in the doorway, holding a folded scarf. Her eyes, once restless and defiant, now carried something quieter. "Grandma," she said, "you forgot this." I took it, feeling the softness between my fingers. "You made this." She nodded shyly. "I knitted it. Took me 3 weeks." I chuckled. 3 weeks? Took me half a year to learn my first stitch. Her lips curved in a small smile. Guess I had a good teacher. As we drove to the gallery, Fiona's hands gripped the wheel tightly. "Are you sure we're ready for this, Mom?" "Ready or not," I said, watching the city glide past, "it's time the world saw what redemption looks like, not in youth, but in understanding." When we arrived, cameras and voices filled the air again, but this time, the chaos didn't pierce me. There were banners outside. "The Hands That Teach," an art exhibition by Aubrey Lane. Underneath, in smaller letters, "In collaboration with senior artists of Greenhaven Center." Inside, the room was filled with portraits. Old hands, wrinkled faces, eyes full of history. Each piece was tender, reverent. But in the center stood the painting that started it all, the one Aubrey had painted of my hands surrounded by smaller ones. It was larger now, touched up and framed in soft gold. People stood in silence before it. Some wiped their eyes. Some smiled. Mr. Lowell Pierce approached with a bouquet of daisies. "Marjorie," he said with a warm grin, "you've raised 3 generations of Lane women with more grace than most of us can manage in one lifetime." I laughed softly. "Oh, Lowell, grace was never something I owned. It's something life loaned me every time I thought I was finished." He chuckled. "Well, consider the loan renewed." I watched as Aubrey moved through the crowd, answering questions humbly. When a journalist asked, "Do you regret what happened before?" she paused and said, "I regret not understanding my grandmother sooner. But mistakes are only prisons if you stop growing inside them." The audience clapped, and I felt something loosen in my chest. After the speeches ended, Aubrey walked me to the painting. "Grandma," she whispered, "this is for you. The gallery wants to donate part of the proceeds to fund art therapy for seniors. In your name." My throat tightened. "In my name? Oh, honey, that's not necessary." "It is," she said, "because you're the reason this exists." Tears welled in my eyes. "Then promise me one thing. Don't let this be about fixing your reputation. Let it be about honoring the people who taught you to see." "I promise," she whispered. As people began to leave, Fiona joined us, wiping her eyes. "Mom, I think Dad would have been proud today." I smiled softly. "He's probably up there saying, 'About time you 3 stopped making me worry.'" We laughed, and for a moment, the years between us disappeared. That evening, we returned home, tired but lighter. The house smelled of lavender and memory. Aubrey brewed tea while Fiona set the table. As we sat together, I noticed Aubrey's hands. They were paint-stained again, but steady, purposeful. "You know," I said, holding out my own, "they're starting to look like mine." She smiled faintly. "Maybe that's not a bad thing anymore." "No," I said, "it's the best thing." After dinner, she brought out a small wrapped box. "One more surprise," she said shyly. Inside was a photo album. On the cover, written in gold ink, "For the hands that raised me." Page after page was filled with photos, me baking pies, holding baby Fiona, gardening, sewing, laughing. At the end was a picture of my hands holding hers when she was a toddler. Below it, a handwritten note. You gave me everything I once mocked. I see it now. Thank you for teaching me what beauty really means. My tears fell before I could stop them. I pulled her into my arms. Oh, Aubrey, we're both still learning. But I'm proud of the woman you're becoming. She whispered against my shoulder. I love you, Grandma. I love you too, child. That night, long after they'd gone to bed, I sat by the window with the album in my lap. The moonlight fell softly across the pages, illuminating those old, familiar hands. I thought about everything they had done, how they'd held life and loss in equal measure, and how, somehow, they were still steady enough to hold love. I picked up a pen and began writing a letter to Aubrey. Not a goodbye, just words I wanted her to find someday when I was gone. My dearest Aubrey, you once laughed at my hands, not out of cruelty, but because youth doesn't yet understand the weight of years. I want you to remember that beauty isn't in smoothness, it's in endurance. Every wrinkle means you've lived, every scar means you've tried, and every tremor means your heart is still moving forward. The world will always chase what's new, but one day you'll see that what lasts isn't the shine, it's the soul. Love.
Grandma.
When I finished, I tucked the letter between the last pages of the album and closed it gently. The next morning, I woke early and went to the garden. The air smelled of rain. My knees ached, but I didn't mind. As I knelt to plant new seeds, Aubrey came outside, still in her robe. Grandma, what are you doing up so early? Starting again? I said, patting the soil. It's what old hands do best. She knelt beside me. Can I help? I handed her a trowel. Always. For a while. We worked in silence, the earth cool beneath our fingers. Then she said quietly, You know, I used to think your hands looked worn out. Now I think they look like they've held the whole world. I smiled through tears. Maybe just the pieces that mattered. Weeks turned into months. Aubrey continued teaching art at the senior center, her classes growing each week. She'd come home covered in paint and stories about the people she met, veterans, widows, dreamers rediscovering color. She'd show me their drawings with a joy I hadn't seen in her since she was little. One afternoon, Dr. Nia Caldwell came by for a checkup. You're looking better than ever, Mrs. Lane, she said. What's your secret? I smiled. Forgiveness. It's the best medicine I've ever taken. Aubrey, standing nearby, squeezed my shoulder. She's not wrong, she said. As spring gave way to summer, our family found rhythm again. Fiona laughed more. Aubrey painted constantly. And me, I kept writing letters. Not for anyone to read now, but for the days when my voice would be gone and my stories would have to speak for themselves. One evening, as the sun dipped low and painted the sky in amber, Aubrey asked, Grandma, if you could change anything, would you? I thought for a long moment.
No, darling.
Because every pain carved out space for love to grow. Even the worst moments brought us here. She nodded, her eyes glistening. I think I finally get it now. I touched her cheek. Then my work here is done. We sat together, watching the sunset melt into twilight. The world was quiet, but inside, I felt full of memories, forgiveness, and an unshakable peace. Later, as she helped me inside, she reached for my hand again. Her grip was gentle but sure. For the first time, I realized our hands weren't different generations. They were the same story, written in two languages. And as I looked at her, I whispered the final truth I'd carried all along. Hands age, child. But love never wrinkles.